Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. Today I'm going to talk to you about US politics and about corruption and grift that are taking place in the White House in very plain sight, and it's pretty staggering. I'm going to give you the opening remarks to this video through an exchange between Ted Cruz and Sheldon Whitehouse, two senators who are talking about money, dark money, that is funding politicians. And Democrats have tried to pass some legislation that would highlight where that money is coming from to try and make things more transparent. Remember, I talked to you about whatever legislation or event or piece of rhetoric or action you see from a politician anywhere or from anyone anywhere, does it go into the pot that represents making politics, society, whatever, more transparent, freer, more democratic? Or does it get put in a box that is the opposite to all of those ideals? And there are many ideals we could talk about there. So, if you are trying to make the funding of politics more transparent, that goes in the, hey, that's transparent, that's good for democracy box. If you're voting against something like that, then you are promoting a lack of transparency and essentially promoting corruption. Here's the exchange between Sheldon Whitehouse and Ted Cruz.
Democrat colleagues never seem concerned by that massive money on the left, which is considerably larger than the money that is supporting Republicans.
Now, he's talking about, funding going to the Democrats against funding going to Republicans in a run-up to election campaigns. And actually, it depends how you slice and dice it. So it was looking like the Democrats were going to raise more money. In the end, I think a certain number of people, such as Elon Musk, gave the Republicans a stupendous amount of money. Elon Musk may have helped out the Republicans to the tune of sort of $280 million or something along those lines. But anyway, Ted Cruz here is claiming that the Democrats are receiving more money, right? But it's not about whether you receive more money, although I think that's a problem. I think money needs to come out of politics. There are two separate things, because there is quid pro quo, right? You give money, you're expecting something in return, generally, unless it's small donations from individuals. But massive donations, you're going to expect something back, generally. But it's not about that. It's about dark money. It's about money you don't know where it comes from. It gets funneled into PACs from here, where, there, or everywhere. When you've got crypto, when you got money going into meme coins and whatnot, things get a bit more obscure.
Again, since you're speaking about me, that's also not true. I am the actual lead sponsor of an act that would end dark money, and it wouldn't end it just on your side. It would end it for everyone. Everyone would know who is funding people's campaigns. And every Democrat votes for that bill to get rid of dark money, and every Republican votes against that bill to protect dark money, largely because the fossil fuel industry's dark money is the lifeblood of the Republican political operation. You don't want to see that exposed.
Which is why you have seen on the Big Beautiful Bill not only a lifting of mandates and subsidies for electric vehicles, wind and solar, you've actually seen added taxes. They are trying to destroy the renewables industry because they are receiving money from the fossil fuels industry. I mean, that is so well documented. The money flows from the fossil fuels very much to the Republican Party. Now let's just move it from talking about, I mean, not really gone into detail about dark money and that kind of corruption. I want to talk more about actual grifting corruption of we hear that Jessica Tarlov was talking about this on Fox News the other day, that Donald Trump, since he came to power as a billionaire, he has generated 40% of his present wealth since January the 20th. So how can you have a situation like that without there being a conflict of interest? How can you have a situation where that isn't obscene? Donald Trump, as a billionaire, has generated 40% of his wealth since becoming president. So let's look at some of the grifts. We have breaking, the newest grift just dropped. Trump fragrances, says Donald Trump on Truth Social. So he already has a social media platform that he's not divested. He then uses that to pump out his statements, his official government statements as the president come from Truth Social. So already there's an issue, and that has value. Like Truth Social as a network has value, and it would be going up as a result of what he does as president. It will have sort of advertising and other sort of ways of generating income. So that's a problem. And then on Truth Social, through his kind of official presidential, I mean, you can argue that's not his official presidential. It's not like a White House handle. This is the handle he's always had, real Donald Trump. But this is de facto his official POTUS voice. Trump fragrances are here. They're called Victory 45 to 47 because they're all about winning, strength, and success from men and women. Get yourself a bottle, and don't forget to get one for your loved ones too. Enjoy, have fun, and keep winning. Go to gettrumpfragrances.com. About $250 plus. I mean, incredibly expensive, but there you go. So that is grift in my book. Here we have Trump talking about it. This is a president of the United States. Can you imagine Joe Biden doing this? Can you imagine Barack Obama doing this, or George Bush doing this? No.
Fragrances are here. They make a great Christmas present.
That's a different fragrance, by the way. That's a fight one. It's a different one than the one we just seen.
I've named them fight because they represent winning. We all want to be winning. We have to win as a nation. We want to win as a family. This fragrance is all about strength and success and confidence for men and for women. Get yourself a bottle, and don't forget to grab one for your loved ones too. They'll thank you, and they'll even smell good. Enjoy, have fun, keep on winning, and Merry Christmas.
So that came before this latest one. So this latest fragrance is not his first set of fragrances, the Victory fragrances. He'd already had the fight ones. And then this new fragrance is on the back of his watch adverts.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time.
$100,000.
Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time. Hello, everyone.
So, $100,000 watch that he's selling there. And then when he went to speak recently at Fort Bragg, so military, he already had people like cheering and jeering politically. It was already incredibly controversial. But then we have a question here in one of these hearings. For Trump's Fort Bragg event, there was a merch shop selling MAGA merch. Is that appropriate? General Kane, I'm not aware of these reports. The nation demands non-partisan military. So he's selling merch at a military establishment. I mean, it's just outrageous. But yeah, so I would say that this is deeply problematic, especially since when Hunter Biden was selling paintings as a private citizen, he was labeled corrupt by, and he's not even a politician, right? Corrupt by the GOP politicians, and they say nothing about this. This is the double standards are so obvious, right? So recently, I mean, we're going back now a week. Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell from The Rest Is Politics talked about the staggering levels of, I think, open corruption in the Trump administration.
Federal, local, but the one thing that's changed in a way that has taken us almost back to the 19th century is the old corruption with a capital O has come back into American politics.
Do you mean a capital C?
O and C, maybe old corruption. The old corruption was a big revolutionary symbol. And of course, it feels like 18th century British politics. I mean, it's the stuff we tried to clear up with the Victorians.
But it's also a very, very, very modern version of it. So I was reading something the other day. His crypto earnings now are probably greater than his property earnings, which is pretty cool. And last night, Roy, just think of all the things that are going on in the world now. that the American president could go onto his money-making Truth Social post network and say, this is the one from last night. From the President of the United States, Trump fragrances are here. They're called Victory 4547 because they're all about winning, strength, and success for men and women. Get yourself a bottle and don't forget to get one for your loved ones too. Enjoy, have fun, keep winning. And there's a link to the website and a picture. There you are. It's a slim-looking Donald Trump done in the form of an Oscar on top of the thing that you spray with his signature across the top. Now, you're laughing. We could all laugh at it. But can you imagine, not just any president in history, can you imagine any current world leader doing that? And then you've got Trump sneakers, you've got Trump watches.
Well, it is pretty amazing because you're right. The reason we don't get any other current world leader doing it is that even in the poorest countries in the developing world, corruption has gone completely central to everything in politics. I mean, obviously, if you're a Nigerian politician, or if you're in China, or you're in Vietnam, or Cambodia, or in Indonesia, corruption is the number one thing you say about your politicians, and it's the number one thing that your president tries to pretend to be cracking down on. In fact, most of the electoral campaign, if you're running to be Nigerian president, is I'm going to eliminate corruption, right? So you can't, in those countries, go around blatantly taking, jets from other countries. You can't go around launching meme coins, NFTs, generating money in this kind of way. You have to try to do it secretly.
Yeah.
Trump's totally open style implies firstly that America oddly, he must sense that America doesn't really care about corruption, that his voters are not worried in the way that Nigerian voters are about corruption. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing it so openly.
Well, where you're right, he's definitely doing it absolutely openly. And that's what a lot of the Republicans, some of whom must feel very uncomfortable about this, their line of defense is, well, look, this is all out in the open. He's doing it all out in the open. But it's now reaching over into policy. So, for example, he is yet again on his Truth Social, where he, makes a lot of money out of that as well. He's been posting about Netanyahu's court case, his corruption case. And he's been saying that Netanyahu's a great guy and he's a war leader. Leave him alone, drop this case. It's like the witch hunt against me. There's a story today about Bukele in El Salvador wanting some of these gang members. He wants them sent back, not because he's, cares about their welfare or anything else, because he's worried about whether they would testify to some of this, maybe the connections there. So he's sort of linking up with other leaders that have got corruption issues outstanding against them as well. But Rory, just to go through some of it, you mentioned the meme coin. Okay, a state-owned entity in the UAE has put in $2 billion into this thing.
Into the meme coin?
Into the meme coin. So they reckon they've raised, and they reckon they've made about 320 million in trading fees. They reckon Baron Trump, the young one, has earned up to 40 million because he's one of the founders. The other way they're making a lot of money is through legal settlements with the media, and also Jeff Bezos paying Milani $40 million
to make a documentary on Amazon.
Make a documentary on Amazon, which may or may not get aired.
Can I just put in a small footnote on the meme coin to remind people? So Javier Selgas of one of the big shipping companies in Mexico bought $20 million of Donald Trump's meme coin with the money from his publicly listed company.
Mm-hmm.
And in his ruling with the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is the big US regulator, he stated that this was a good use of the money of a publicly listed company of shareholders because he knows that if he buys meme coins from Trump, they will then get a concession on the trading terms that they get with the United States, and therefore the company will be able to make money. So it's not even a secret.
Mm.
The thing there is that you get a statement to the SEC literally saying, the quid pro quo is you buy these meme coins, and in return, we can be confident that our company will benefit. The same, we've talked about this in the past, you can also buy these things in order to get the Department of Justice to drop its investigations against you. So,
well, I'll give you one. Justin's son, who's a Chinese.
That investigation, well, we'll talk a little bit more about some of these topics that have been brought up by Rory Stewart as the video goes on. But this is worth listening to just a little bit more.
Billionaire who photographed recently wearing a $100,000 Donald Trump watch. He spent $75 million buying crypto tokens from this thing, World Liberty Financial, which is the thing that's set up by the Trump family and the Witkoffs, his sort of great special envoy doing Marco Rubio's job. 5 weeks after Trump became president, the SEC, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission, they dropped a civil fraud case against this guy. Now, could be entirely coincidental. Could be. However, I think it's fair to say that we're talking here about somebody who's not averse. We keep talking about him being a transactional leader. That's the sort of transaction that we're talking about. And then, to cap it all, you have Eric Trump, one of the sons, who's sort of he and Don Jr. doing a lot of the business for the family. He does an interview in the Financial Times at the weekend where he actually presents the family as victims. We would be making so much more money if my dad had not gone into politics. If there's one family that's not benefited from politics, it's the Trump family. You know,
and he also says I have to look after my children. It's very unfair. I've got to, why am I not allowed to earn the money to look after my children?
And meanwhile, $5.5 billion deal for a golf resort in Qatar, which will include a 7-kilometre long entertainment district, 18-hole golf course and a Legends theme park. And that's a deal led by a real estate company owned by Qatar's sovereign wealth fund. So we're seeing, why was his first trip to the Middle East? Not to Israel and Gaza, but to the rich Gulf petrostates? Answer, because he was doing loads of deals with them.
Can I quickly just remind people on the meme coin, because I know some listeners will be less into this. So the meme coin is you basically buy something that would be like the virtual equivalent of getting a kind of gold coin with Alistair Campbell's face on it. Let's say Alistair issued in the real world.
Yeah.
You could collect 5,000 lovely gold coins with Alistair's face on it, right?
Oh, well, even I wouldn't buy that. So,
right. So these things, these are the virtual equivalents. Now, there are a couple of great advantages to them for the Trump family in making money. One of them is that they are classified under US law as collectibles rather than investments. So they completely escape normal scrutiny about pump and dump, conflicts of interest.
What that means is you can't really use them generally as currency. You can't buy things. You can't exchange things for these meme coins. They're like Pokemon cards, really. I can't go into Sainsbury's supermarket and pay for my groceries with a couple of Pokemon cards. I have to exchange them back into money before doing so, and it's the same with these meme coins. So as a result, being collectibles, they don't get treated in the same way, and you can end up therefore taking advantage of that.
Selling. So in the normal world, if I issued a product, let's say I was issuing, I don't know, an insurance policy, or I was telling you that I was going to build a monument and you were giving me money, a lot of law exists in the US to protect you as the investor, to stop me running a Ponzi scheme, to stop me effectively stealing all your money on false pretenses, doing nothing with it, and then running off with it, right? But once something's classified as a collectible, it escapes most of those rules. And of course, they make it even easier for themselves because they locate some of the jurisdictions outside the United States. So there are trading platforms located in China. The second thing, though, that it gives you, which is really helpful for corruption, is you have a leaderboard with a transparent wallet, which lets you know who's bought the most of them. So you can know that the Chinese investor has bought, tens of millions of that. The top buyers get the Trump watch. That's part of the deal. And then they get invited to dinner in Mar-a-Lago if you've been a big donor. So it's a beautiful thing. And you as the Trump family get two advantages. Number one, you can pump and dump. So one of the things that happened is the prices massively spiked. Let's say the Alistair Campbell coin went up to $85 and then dropped down. But of course, what one assumes is that the Trump family sold at the top of the market. The price came tumbling down and everybody who bought lost. And the second thing is it's a beautiful way totally unregulated, of I buy the Alistair Campbell coin, and in return, I get access to Alistair Campbell and presumably the influence that Alistair Campbell can come to bring. But this is the president.
It's more than that, because they get a transaction fee as well. So every time there are transactions on that Trump coin, the Trump family will get a fee. So not only can they pump and dump and manipulate it and make money out of selling high, buying low, and be the ones to manipulate it going up and down by proclaiming things on social media and using his platform as president to do that, but he then gets money every time people buy. So when they are making or losing money, whoever controls that meme coin, they just make consistent money on transactions, and as long as it's being transacted upon, then it is making the Trump family money. It's making Donald Trump, the president, money.
That's in the United States. This is not my friend Alistair.
Yeah, but also if you think about it, I mean, let's just assume. I mean, our friend Scaramucci says that Eric and Don Jr. are both dumb as rocks, but let's assume they're not. Let's actually say that they're really clever, they're really smart, and if they were in business and nobody knew who they were, they'd be really, really effective, okay? Even if you assume that, the truth is what they're doing all the time is trading on the marketing of one of the most famous names in the world, aka Trump. So when they're going and doing these projects that they're doing at the moment in Saudi, in Qatar, in the UAE, in Serbia, in India, in Oman, they're doing all these deals and they get through the door largely because their name is Trump. And I think the definition of corruption is the use of your political position to advance your own personal interest. Now, they say, well, he doesn't get involved in this, that, and the other. I'm sorry, there he is yesterday on his Truth Social posting his fragrance for profit. And he does it with Bibles, and he does it with, he's now got a new club. There's a new Trump club in Washington, $500,000 membership.
Which his kids have set up with the Witkoff kids. I mean, this is another part of the story of the kind of nepotism and family connections here. I mean, I used to, I'm sure many of your friends and Jonathan Powell and others, as you get involved in international governance, particularly in the 90s and 2000s, we spent a lot of time traveling around the world talking about corruption, because one of the big ideas was you needed to do governance reform.
Yeah.
A lot of development agencies differed and everyone involved. A lot of my meetings in Nigeria were on corruption, etc. We've forgotten, I think, in a way, what the theory of corruption is. And corruption's a lot of different things, and Trump's doing almost all of them. The first type of corruption is what's called embezzlement, where you take public money into your own pocket. And you can do that in different ways, right? You can do it by getting, as he did in the first administration, an enormous amount of public money spent on security for Trump properties. Or the second thing most recently is local state money goes into Trump-affiliated companies to do disaster relief work.
This is really important. So during Trump 1, this happened an awful lot, where people were staying at Trump Tower. He would invite foreign dignitaries over and have meetings at Mar-a-Lago, and people who are staying at Trump Tower or in Mar-a-Lago or whatever, and then he'll bump the prices up for staying there. So government money would be spent on having these dignitaries stay over and on security, and that money would essentially be going to his management of properties, to his hotels and Mar-a-Lago, and they'll be going and they're having drinks and meals and coffee, all of that is at properties that he owns. And that during Trump 1.0 was seen as highly controversial, but nothing ever really got done about it. It's breaking the emoluments clause, but in order to go to court over the emoluments clause, you have to show that you'd have to be like another golf club that's saying, hey, hang on, like they could be coming here, but they're going there and he's making money out of that. So that's taking money away from me. It's very difficult to challenge Trump on that, even though it is clearly breaking that clause and it is clearly corruption. But so that was something that was definitely done and is almost certainly being continued to be done by Trump and his administration.
Second sort of thing is foreign emoluments, where foreign governments give you money to your company, money to your kids, money to your a plane, and in return you do tariff stuff. Third thing is nepotism. That's a kind of different thing. That's about giving your friends and family jobs. So That's putting
Kushner,
Jared Kushner or
Ivanka
your
Trump.
daughter into jobs. That's putting your children's father-in-laws into jobs. A lot of this
Steve
stuff is about
Witkoff.
children's father-in-laws.
Fathers-in-law, Rory. I think we...
Fathers-in-law. Then there's misuse of office. So he does a lot of that. So, for example, using the Department of Justice to target your opponents. There's obstruction of justice. So that's blocking oversight. And how does this all have a result? Well, why does it matter to Americans?
And blocking oversight, putting your people into the FCC, SEC, so on and so forth, that then stop investigations into people like Elon Musk. Elon Musk gives you loads of money. He gives you money so that you get into power, so that you can stop investigations into Elon Musk. That's how it works. So these people that are placed in particular positions, such as the FCC and the SEC, will be doing things for Trump. That is corruption.
Well, it matters to Americans because in the end, what it leads to is everything beginning to go wrong in your economy. Once you have an economy where you can bribe or influence or get access to the leader just with money, government resources begin to flow into inefficient projects where you've been bribed. Regulations begin to get dropped, so you begin to get rid of regulatory agencies. So there's more and more environmental damage done by these companies as they roll it out. The quality of public administration begins to decline because there's not much reason for civil servants to function. And you get into this incredible vicious cycle where, because you're paying the government to speed things up, the government has an incentive to slow things down. Waiting.
And Rory Stewart knows about this because that's when he, in foreign development, as foreign development secretary for the UK government under the Conservatives, that's, he's going and dealing with governments that are in that position, that are down that corruption rabbit hole, and they are suffering in all of those ways. And he knows what he's talking about here.
For the money to come in. So all of that is what Trump begins to deliver for the American people.
And I could listen to that whole thing with you. It's just absolutely fascinating. So he's already talked here about this chap here that went to he's a crypto billionaire, went to the meal. He was one who was under investigation. The top holder of Trump coin, meme coin, faced SEC charges for market manipulation, was avoiding coming to the US for a fear of arrest. Now his lawsuit has been paused, and he's invited to the VIP dinner with Donald Trump. The guy's bribing the president in plain sight. Ron Filipkowski says the most corrupt administration in American history by far, and we're only 4 months in. We're now 6 months in, and it hasn't changed. And he hasn't come close to the depths of depravity he is mining. But tune into CNN for updates on a dinner party in 2023 where Biden used the wrong fork. And here we have the guy, I might have been him or someone else, turning up in a mask to the VIP dinner because he didn't want to be identified. One of Trump's crypto investors entered the event wearing a mask there. It's pure corruption. And then we had Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, refusing to give a list of the attendees to the Trump crypto dinner. Again, what pot does this go in? Does this go into the transparency pot or to the lack of transparency pot? Is this good for democracy or bad for democracy?
Sure. On the president's dinner tonight, will the White House commit to making a list of the attendees public so people can see who's paying for that kind of access to the president?
Well, as you know, Garrett, this question has been raised with the president. I have also addressed the dinner tonight. The president is attending it in his personal time. It is not a White House dinner. It's not taking place here at the White House. But certainly I can raise that question and try to get you an answer for it.
Okay. And
Sure.
I can raise a question and try and get you an answer. The answer is no. The answer is no. It was not publicized. It was not published. So then here we have a report on the crypto dinner, which is, again, it's a few minutes long, but it's worth listening to.
A winning night for crypto billionaires and for Donald Trump. A rare look tonight inside the private black-tie dinner with President Trump and more than 200 wealthy investors at the Trump National Golf Club near Washington. It was closed to the public and press, but wide open to those investing hundreds of millions of dollars in the Trump family's cryptocurrency accounts. One guest of honor, Justin Sun, a Chinese crypto billionaire and one of Trump's best customers, showing off his prize of a $100,000 watch. On X, he wrote, "As the top holder of Trump, I'm excited to connect with everyone, talk crypto, and discuss the future of our industry."
What a nice place. Did you get to see the helicopters?
The investors, many of whom flew to Washington from outside the country, dined on Trump organic field green salad, filet mignon, and pan-seared halibut, followed by warm lava cake. U.S. law prohibits foreign nationals from making political contributions, but no such rules apply to crypto investments.
How convenient.
Is the latest act of a high-flying life, well documented on social media. He's perhaps best known for a $6 million banana duct taped to a wall, which he bought and ate. 2 years ago, during the Biden administration, the Securities and Exchange Commission charged Sun with fraud and market manipulation. After Trump returned to office, the legal action was paused. Sun's publicity stunts include paying $4.6 million for a charity lunch with Warren Buffett before canceling at the last minute. He ponied up $28 million for a seat on one of Blue Origin's first manned space flights, but canceled that too. Sun holds more than $20 million in the Trump meme coin and invested $75 million in World Liberty Financial, a Trump family crypto company. The White House did not release a list of guests.
World Liberty Financial is often touted as just one of the most openly corrupt things to have happened in US government in recent times.
Saying it was a private dinner and the president was attending in his personal time. Nicholas Pinto, a social media influencer and investor, was among those posting videos.
Well, there's a leaderboard here, so I get to see what I see online in person. I found myself, and I just signed it.
Amid an outcry of protests and accusations of corruption, the White House defended the event.
The president is abiding by all conflict of interest laws that are applicable to the president. It's absurd for anyone to insinuate that this president is profiting off of the presidency.
It's absurd to think that this president is profiting off the presidency. True Social, watches, fragrances, all sorts of things that he's pimping out. It's just absolutely obscene that she would say something so brazenly as that. So wrong.
Yet that's precisely what the dinner was intended to do, benefit the president, rather than the GOP or a political committee like most fundraising dinners do.
Fund our kids!
Democrats called the promotional dinner a major conflict of interest.
This is, people have forgotten about this. Happened a few weeks ago. Now everyone's forgot about it. This is corruption that's been and gone, and then will continue in different iterations and different forms. It manifests itself in all sorts of different ways. And Trump is doing this the entire time. This is just one big grift. It's absolutely freaking staggering.
And in effect, he's putting a for sale sign on the White House. It is truly putting this president on a Mount Rushmore of corruption.
Now, for all the black tie dinners that all presidents hold, Erica, this one was extraordinarily different. We have never seen one like this because it benefited the president's business personally as well as his golf club, of course, just outside Washington. But Justin Sun, for his account, was afraid to come to the U.S. for years for fear of being arrested. But today, I'm told, he arrived here for a private tour at the White House. Erica?
That is quite
absolutely incredible. So then at this meeting, this is just a little bit of a sidebar. I just want to, it's not so much to do with corruption, it's just to do with potentially just lying and talking nonsense. So this is Trump at that dinner talking about inflation.
The country is doing really well. We have no inflation. Costs are way down. Oil just was at $1.99, $1.98 a gallon, which you haven't seen in years.
So it said oil, first of all, he says we have no inflation. That literally, that's never the case. Well, unless you've got deflation, right? So unless you've got deflation, you have inflation, right? And it's just about controlling the inflation to minimize it, you know, depending on what you want, right? Anyway, that's just nonsense. And then saying that oil is at $1.99, $1.98 a gallon, which we haven't seen in years. And then, you know, when he said that, and bear in mind, this is back in May the 24th, he said that, and people are like, well, that's not right. It's literally not true. And it's interesting because the other day, this is July the 2nd, so this is a month and almost a month and a half later, he says, remember that phrase, $1.99, $1.98 a gallon. $1.99, $1.98 a gallon. He's just said that's what we've got it to now. A month and a half later, he says this.
No inflation. Gasoline
No
just
inflation.
hit $1.99 today in 5 states. $1.99, isn't that a nice sound? It was up to $4, and going up to 5, 6, and 7. In California, it was $7.70. But we just hit in five states $1.99, $1.98.
He just said we've just hit $1.99, $1.98. And a month and a half before, he said oil was just $1.99, $1.98 a gallon. I mean, means petrol there. So, like, well, you haven't just hit it because you claimed that same thing a month and a half ago. It was wrong then, and it was wrong here. Just like it's all lies. It's just all lies. And then, I don't know, lying is just so normalized now. So I'm just having a bit of a sidebar on lying here. So Fox News host blatantly lied, saying Trump has re-enlisted 8,000 troops.
Naval ship volume was almost half of what it should be, and we had experts telling us that we are not ready for a major conflict militarily if one were to ensue. And this is while we saw conflicts going on all across the nation. Ever since President Trump has now taken his second term, the red, white, and blue are flying higher than ever. You see recruitment's up all across all of military. Morale is up. He has support that is tangible. He re-enlisted 8,000 troops who had to be taken away because they refused the COVID vaccine. He is telling them.
So the claim from Fox News is 8,000 troops who refused the COVID vaccine, who then had to leave the military, have now been re-enlisted. And the actual number is 23. And you're just like, what is going on here? Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent here, lying again.
There are several components there. So if we unpack it, there is the growth, the potential growth of the debt. But what's more important is that we grow the economy faster. So what we've seen under the past 4 years, and what we inherited, I inherited 6.7% deficit to GDP, which was the highest deficit when we were not at war, not in a recession. So we've been trying to.
And that's just wrong, because even the Biden administration just before him inherited a 14.9% deficit to GDP in the first term, and they weren't in a recession or at war. So it's just this overt lying that takes place, which I think goes alongside grifting and corruption. It's just like smoke and mirrors and lying. So talking about recruitment in the military is interesting, because Fox News were in an uncomfortable position recently where an admiral said actually recruitment started spiking upwards it was something like February last year in the Biden administration, because the Biden administration put loads of effort into trying to sort out recruitment. And so what you're seeing now in terms of recruitment numbers looking better is a result of what was happening from the Biden administration. It's not like Trump's come in and then suddenly after 6 months recruitment's been amazing. People just flooded the recruitment offices asking to join up. These things take time and effort, and it was a Biden administration that put a load of effort into that then, according to the military themselves, worked from sort of January, February onwards last year. Donald Trump then speaks at West Point to military recruits who are passing out and said to them, no one wanted to join the military under Biden. Right, so we already know that the admiral himself had said that was not the case, that they'd started to see huge increases back then. Nobody wanted to join the military under Biden. And he said that while speaking to an entire graduating class who joined the military under Biden. And he's literally, the people he's talking to are people who joined under Biden. No one wanted to join under Biden. And you're speaking to a room of 100% of the people joined under Biden. It's just like ridiculous. Anyway, let's go back to corruption, because, hey, so what you've had as well in government, and we've seen this from Marjorie Taylor Greene, we've seen this from all sorts of people. This should be illegal. This should absolutely be outlawed. Politicians should not be allowed to operate in the stock markets. I really think that is the case. So here's Representative Melanie Sainsbury saying the congressman literally dumped stock in a Medicaid provider company right before this bill came to the floor. Don't be fooled. These guys know exactly what they're doing. So basically, he had loads of money in Medicaid. They knew they were going to screw over Medicaid, dumped all that stock before the thing went to the vote. It then went down. So, sell high, buy low. We recently saw Representative Robert Bresnahan selling Centene stock. Centene provides healthcare exchanges for Medicaid. The stock has now fallen 43% since his sale. So this is insider trading. It's just... Anyway, here is a Substack piece from Perspectives on Trump's 10 grifts, and this was written a month and a bit ago itself. So there's probably been more grifts since then. So here's a top 10 grifters they've seen. The Trump crypto coins, which we've already seen, meme coins, and that's given him. I mean, here the estimation is billions. Certainly huge amount of money that he's got from that. World Liberty Financial. So in September 2024, Donald Trump and his sons launched a cryptocurrency venture called World Liberty Financial. The venture is structured to function as a new type of internet bank, allowing users to borrow and lend money digitally. Bloomberg said the token promoted by Trump and all three of his sons went on sale just weeks before the 2024 election, often to offshore buyers. The Trump family and affiliates received 22.5 billion units of the World Liberty Financial cryptocurrency, worth at least 1.1 billion on paper. The Trump family owns 60% stake in World Liberty Financial and receives 75% of the net income from token sales and operations. After the vote, crypto entrepreneur Justin Sun plowed $75 million into World Liberty Financial while fighting a civil fraud suit from US regulators, which he has said lacks merit. Now the case is on pause. More recently, the Abu Dhabi-backed investment firm announced it was making a $2 billion investment in Binance, one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges. This transaction is being facilitated using a stablecoin issued by World Liberty Financial. Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. were present at the announcement. Estimated value to Trump, $2 billion plus. World Liberty Financial has raised over $550 million from token sales, with the Trump family's share of fees estimated at approximately $400 million from those sales alone. Then you got foreign real estate deals where he goes out to Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman, Qatar, and does all these deals, which are for golf clubs and licensing and all sorts. Then he's expanded into other nations: India, Turkey, Vietnam, Serbia, and the Philippines. This is estimated to be worth billions to Trump and his family. From $530 million for the Trump Tower in Jeddah to $1 billion for the Trump Tower in Dubai, $5.5 billion for the Qatar golf course. Management fees generate millions in additional revenue. Then you've got Trump Media and Technology Group, so Truth Social, and that's gone through the roof since he's become president. It's now estimated to be billions. Stock does fluctuate. I mean, before, when he wasn't president, it was seen as absolutely freaking terrible. But of course, it's about the grift. Direct foreign gifts and state-supported assets. I mean, we've heard about that big Qatari airplane. Those kind of gifts, that's corruption as far as I can see. The executive branch, a private club, Donald Trump Jr. founded an executive new club. That's what Alistair Campbell's talking about, where membership fees are $500,000. So he started this with Steve Witkoff's son. So Steve Witkoff is the envoy to Russia and the Middle East. His son and Trump's son start up this club where you buy access to Trump. Plan is to invite 200 members. That's $100 million in potential revenue off the bat. And it's just about access. There's nothing else. You just buy your money, you get access. What do you get with access? You get the president to do, you get the administration to do what you want them to do or what you would like them to do. Then you have the inauguration and political contributions. We already know that, obviously, the 2025 inauguration itself took in a record-breaking $239 million. And remember, the inauguration was effectively cancelled and they held it indoors. They didn't have it going down. You're contributing to Trump's pockets there. Then you have the contributions to the election as well. And you can see that maybe, there would be super PACs and all sorts of ways. There'll be ways that the Trump family would have got money through that. But donors to the inauguration, the donations to the inauguration pretty much will go straight to Trump. In 2017, Trump's inaugural committee spent much of the money on event planning, with nearly $26 million paid to a firm run by a close friend of Trump family and about $5 million donated to charity. So this time they got $239 million. It's just absolutely outrageous. Chevron, ExxonMobil, Shell, and Occidental Petroleum each gave over 500,000. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Apple, Uber, Ford, Toyota, General Motors, Intuit, Delta Airlines, 1 million. Robinhood, 2 million. Ripple Labs, nearly 4.9 million. That's cryptocurrency. And Pilgrim's Pride Corporation, 5 million. And then other individuals throwing in a load as well. Jared Isaacman, 2 million. Warren Stevens, 4 million. So, yeah, in theory, inaugural funds cover the costs of ceremonies, parades, galas, and balls. However, many 2025 events were scaled back or relocated indoors due to bad weather, but the parade was cancelled. So the inauguration committee has broad discretion over how surplus funds are spent, which may be directed to the presidential library or other events. Aides have stated the leftover funds would help finance Trump's planned presidential library and charities aligned with the president. Estimated value, just stupendous amounts of money. I mean, hundreds of millions, I would have thought. Payments at Trump properties. So this is like the emoluments issues I was talking about earlier. Hotels, golf clubs, social clubs that then get used for official events during a Trump presidency. So millions continue to flow into Trump-owned hotels, golf courses and clubs, from political groups, foreign delegations and special interests. In his first term, Trump properties, golf clubs and resorts generated between $1 and $2 billion. So he's making that out of being president. This included activity that clearly involved foreign governments currying favor. Kuwaiti government held National Day celebrations at Trump International Hotel in Washington, paying over $378,000 directly into the former president's business. Saudi Arabia lobbyists spent $270,000 at Trump's DC hotel while lobbying against legislation allowing victims of terrorism to sue foreign governments. And then India, Qatar, Cyprus, Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Kuwait all spent dollars at Trump properties in his first term. So that's all the first term. That'll be going on in the second term for sure. Lawsuit settlements. We're going to come on to this in a second. This is a real problem. Trump has directly benefited from lawsuit settlements that took place after he became president. Okay, let's think about this before we actually go on to look in some detail at the Paramount one. What happens is Trump sues people for frivolous things that he would absolutely lose in court. But if you take this to court with Trump and you win that because it's frivolous, Trump will screw you over in some other way. So what happens is these people, these entities, settle with Trump, giving Trump money for frivolous lawsuits that Trump would otherwise lose so that they can achieve other objectives, right? So that they can curry favor with Trump. So Trump takes someone to court, you pay Trump anyway without really going to court. And then Trump then says, look, they paid me. So he then gets to announce that he's won and that he was in the right whilst receiving money and favors from the people that he's extorted that money from. So Meta's, the Facebook's parent, ABC News, which is Disney, X, money has lawsuit settlements have taken place, right? So Paramount and Trump are currently in discussions. Actually, that seems to have been paid now. We're going to talk about that next. I'm going to leave that one. But anyway, the estimated value to Trump is close to 50 million at the moment and counting. That's still going up. And another way of getting money is, you've got the inauguration. We've got these frivolous lawsuits. And also Amazon, Jeff Bezos, richest man in the world, give or take, has paid Trump $40 million. He paid $1 million for the inauguration, $40 million for for the rights, not even for the ownership over it, for the rights for a Melania Trump documentary, which is way over and above what you'd pay anyone to make such a thing. And there's no one really wants to watch a Melania Trump documentary, I don't think. So this is a way of Jeff Bezos giving money to Donald Trump. So that is just corruption. It's just like, I'm going to give you money through this way that looks vaguely legal. What that means is that now I get what I want from you. You do things that will benefit Amazon. So that's $40 million. And that's just a tip of the iceberg. Other corruptions you get are pardons, where he's just pardoned everyone, pardoned all sorts of people that have many... I did a whole video on the pardons previously, didn't I? It's just, that's crazy. Market manipulation, broader corruption of business and government decisions, so on and so forth. Okay. Right. Then we're going to look very quickly at this Paramount decision. So Paramount has now settled for $16 million over the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. So what happened here with the Kamala Harris interview is when you have, say, 60 Minutes, I don't know how long that interview segment will last. Let's say 30 minutes, right? So on the 60 Minutes program, you have a 30-minute interview section with Kamala Harris. What you do, as you do with everyone that you interview, like if I edited my videos, my interview videos, so that they were coherent, didn't have like stuff that was unnecessary, I'd get my hour and a half videos down to like 45 minutes. What that means is you've got then 45 minutes of stuff that you're cutting out that goes on the cutting room floor. Right, you do this for movies and films and documentaries and all sorts. You film way more than you need, and then you slice it down to make a piece that's, succinct or better quality. You don't include everything in there. This happens all the time with interviews. So the interview for Kamala Harris, I don't know, I'm making this up. Let's say you're going to have 50 minutes of content for 30 minutes of interview. So you pare that down by 20 minutes. What they did in which is totally normal, and they've released a transcript of everything that was said, and there's nothing dodgy went on here at all. So this is a completely frivolous lawsuit. But anyway, what they did is what so many, or all television like productions will do, is they took an answer, or they basically cut some stuff out, but it didn't change anything. So what happened is the question was about Israel and Gaza, I think. And the answer that Kamala Harris gave could be split into two parts, right? And what they did is they showed the second half of the answer on the actual 60 Minutes. And the first half of the answer they put on the network to advertise the interview. Say, look, here's a snippet from the interview. And there it is. Go and watch 60 Minutes. And then when you watch 60 Minutes, that snippet wasn't in the 60 Minutes. And actually, the two parts of that didn't even answer the question anyway, by all accounts. And neither one was better than the... In fact, no, I think they... isn't really... You could argue that... Yeah, one half might have been slightly more coherent than the other, or whatever. But essentially... there was absolutely nothing wrong with what they did there. They didn't even cut it out and get rid of it. They actually cut half the answer out and put it in the advert and kept half the answer in as the answer to the question, but neither really answered the question anyway. Right. Trump then, or someone in Trump's orbit, sees that hang on, that bit's not in the interview. And then Trump goes, right, we're going to sue them. They are doctoring the interview. This is absolutely heinous. And we have the situation where Trump has now reached a $16 million settlement with Paramount, the parent company of CBS News that produces 60 Minutes, over what he claimed was false editing of a pre-election interview with Democratic candidate for President Kamala Harris in what is likely to be seen as further example of capitulation by media companies hoping to smooth the waters with Trump. Trump had filed a $10 billion lawsuit against the company in October, one of a string of legal actions against US media conglomerates over what the US president maintains was biased, incorrect, or fake news reporting. Of course, the problem here for Trump is that if it went to court, it wouldn't have succeeded. And Fox News did something way worse when they asked him about the files for MLK, JFK, and Jeffrey Epstein. And he goes, she asked, would you release the files on MLK? And he's like, yes. Would you release them on JFK? Yes. Would you release them on Epstein? He says, yes. And then it cuts it there for the main interview. But the extended version of the interview, he goes, yes, for Epstein. He says, oh, actually, no, I'm not sure I would release all of it because... And then he qualifies it and then basically changes his answer. Fox News cut out the extended part, which is insanely important. So that does change the meaning of the answer. That changes the whole flavour of the interview. And in fact, it makes it look like Trump is compromised by Epstein. Now, you can be justified in taking Fox to court. So if CBS gets taken to court on something that is not justified, but is in the same kind of domain as what Fox News did, then you can definitely take Fox News to court. But anyway, they settled without going to court here. In a late night announcement, Paramount, which is preparing, and here's the key. So the question is, why did they settle $16 million? So what Trump what Paramount were trying to do is to go into a merger with Skydance Entertainment, I think. And that merger is worth an absolute ton of money. And so you have this woman, Sherry Redstone, who's one of the main owners of Paramount, who's going to make a ton of money, more than $60 million. Say, right, okay, this needs to go through the FCC in order for this to happen. The Federal Communications Commission. And Trump controls that with his stooge. So we will not, he's then taken us to court. If we challenge that in court and win in court, we will not have to pay 10 billion. We won't have to pay 16 million. We will win that court case. But then we will not be able to have a merger with Skydance. So Trump is using that leverage to then get $16 million out of Paramount. So Paramount go, well, we're going to win that, but if we win that, we lose the merger. The merger is more important than $16 million, so we're going to give Trump $16 million, and we can then do the merger. And that's what happened. So it's preparing for an $8.4 billion merger, which requires approval from the US Federal Communications Commission, headed by Trump loyalist Brendan Carr, said it would pay a sum to settle the suit. It said that the money would be allocated at Trump's discretion, either to his future presidential library, which is already getting full up of all sorts of other corruption monies, or to charitable causes, and not paid to Trump directly or indirectly, which I would say is still paying him indirectly, right, if it goes to the presidential library. The settlement does not include a statement of apology or regret. In other words, they get away with paying money, not having to say that they did wrong. So there's nothing to do with whether Paramount did wrong or not. The CBS did wrong or not. Nothing to do with that. This is just, we want money. They get some money, and yep, you don't have to apologize or show any regret, because that's not really what it's about. Just incredible. And then when you come down to the end of this article, but the US and California lawmakers have said any settlement may violate bribery laws. Quote, Paramount appears to be trying to settle a lawsuit that it has assessed is as, quote, completely without merit. So they'd already said this lawsuit is frivolous, it's without merit. The Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Ron Wyden said in a May letter to Paramount's chair, Sherry Redstone. Under the federal bribery statute, it is illegal to corruptly give anything of value to public officials to influence an official act, the letter says. If Paramount officials make these concessions in a quid pro quo arrangement to influence President Trump or other administration officials, they may be breaking the law. Sanders said it was a, quote, dark day for independent journalism and freedom of press, an essential part of our democracy. It is a victory for the president who is attempting to stifle dissent and undermine American democracy. The settlement is the latest example of media corporate parent companies making concessions to Trump and the Trump administration, which frequently casts unfavorable coverage as fake news. On Tuesday, Trump and the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem threatened to sue CNN over its reporting on an app designed to help people avoid immigration and customs enforcement agents, and over the reporting of a damage assessment to Iran's nuclear facilities that was unfavorable to the administration's claims. So if you report something the Trump administration doesn't like, they will sue you, and then you will settle out of court so you can still get access to the White House or whatever. The settlement also comes after Meta Platforms, the Facebook and Instagram parent company, said on January the 29th it had agreed to pay about $25 million to settle a lawsuit by Trump over the company's suspension of his accounts after the 6th of January 2021 attack on the US Capitol. Paramount's decision to settle the case, which was reportedly caused deep upset in the CBS newsroom, also follows ABC News agreeing to pay $15 million to Trump to settle a defamation lawsuit over inaccurate comments by the anchor George Stephanopoulos that Trump had been found civilly liable for rape. Okay, so there was already form for this. So ABC News, that's owned by Disney, came to a settlement, I think before the election, before the inauguration, for $15 million because Trump was taking George Stephanopoulos to court because he said that Trump was found liable for rape. And Trump was saying, no, I wasn't. I was, brackets, I was found liable for sexual assault. But the judge in that ruling said explicitly himself that it's only called sexual assault, I'm paraphrasing here, in New York, particularly because it was done digitally, so with his fingers, rather than with his with his genitalia. But he said it is effectively rape. So he said in the ruling that it is rape, but we just call it that differently in this district for legal reasons. So George Stephanopoulos wouldn't have lost that court case. Again, that was a court case that should have been taken to court. Trump would have lost it, and Trump would have lost the Paramount case. But with both organizations, Disney and Paramount, because they want to be on the right side of Donald Trump, they pay out of court to settle a frivolous lawsuit that never would have been won by Trump. Then Trump gets to say, I'm victorious, I was in the right, even though he wasn't in the right. And he gets his pockets stuffed full of cash. This is absolute corruption. The American government is horrific right now. The Trump administration is horrific in what they are doing legally. You can go watch Jon Stewart talk to the CBS reporter here, former 60 Minutes correspondent Steve Croft, who said it was a shakedown. I don't play these because every time I play the Comedy Central clips, I get a copyright infringement. So I can't play any of that, but it's a fascinating insight where it's like, this was a shakedown. We were shaken down and Trump gets to walk away with that money. Incredible. But there's an update to this that's even worse. So Elizabeth Warren, aforementioned, says an update. This just got worse. So Trump claims 60 Minutes settlement is worth as much as $35 million, including advertising. Paramount has denied the deal includes PSAs. So Warren says Donald Trump apparently cut a secret side deal for millions in pro-Trump ads. So not only has Paramount paid out $16 million to Trump, but they are going to run preferential advertising and rhetoric concerning Trump going forward to the tune of $35 million. Trump owns that media outlet now in that deal that he's done. That would mean Paramount and its soon-to-be owner are shelling out $30 million plus to support Trump, all while trying to get his approval on their merger. Is this bribery? Yes, it is. Absolutely outrageous. And then, and I'm not going to go into detail about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff going on, but I mean, that's blowing my mind at the moment. I'm caught halfway between this really is a massive conspiracy okay, everyone was just lying beforehand, the Dan Bonginos and the whatever. But I was listening to, and I don't like listening to Tucker Carlson, but I was listening to Tucker Carlson and Sagar and Jetty. And then Jetty was making some really interesting points about Epstein's connection to the former Israeli prime minister, lots of money, Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Maxwell's connections to the state of Israel. And also just this general point that someone I was reading, and it's a really obvious point now, I come to think of it, but this client list that's gone missing, and it's a shorthand, it won't be just a list of people's names, it's just all the documentation that gives you an idea that these people, there's leverage over these people. And what's happened, and this could be why the client list, as so-called client list, has disappeared. That client list was a form of leverage that at least Jeffrey Epstein had over those people, whoever those people are. And to some degree, some people are saying it wasn't just Jeffrey Epstein, that would be the Israeli government or the Secret Services, MI6, CIA, Mossad, whatever. Okay, people had that leverage over those people. Let's just say that's Jeffrey Epstein, had leverage over whoever those people are. If that client list has disappeared, it still exists. So who has that data? Well, FBI. Or the Trump administration. Who has that leverage now? So what they've done is they've just transferred leverage from Jeffrey Epstein to the Trump administration. All of those people that were would have been under the thumb of Epstein and or Mossad and whoever else you want to think about, are now under the thumb of Donald Trump and his administration and the FBI and whoever now controls that client list. Now that is something to think about. So they've closed that now. They stopped. They're like, nothing to see here. All those people that were, and there are hundreds of people supposedly involved in this, in the trafficking. Now they're not trafficking. It was just Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, and there was no trafficking, and the payment out by Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan is for no reason, and Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison for no reason, I guess, or certainly not for trafficking. So anyway, nothing to see here. Move along. And the FBI have closed that down and are now launching criminal investigations into John Brennan and James Comey. Wow. I mean, so former FBI people that were associated with looking into Trump are now being investigated themselves, and it's like distraction. It's just like nothing to see here. And in fact, some people, like, there's an argument between Gunter Eagleman and Cat Turd online, where one is saying, is this just a distraction away from Jeffrey Epstein? This is what this is. It's a pure distraction away from that. And then the other one's like, no, you can't say that. WTF? What are you talking about? In other words, look, we need to stay together, where you've got this fracturing of some of the MAGA right going, we're being sold a lie here. This is a dupe. And now they're trying to sell us down a river with shiny things. And then other people say, no, you can't say that, who are trying to remain faithful to Trump and the administration. And you've got that fracture. So, yeah, absolutely fascinating. And just remember, I'm just going to leave you with the idea that the corruption doesn't just exist in terms of money changing hands and dodgy stuff over here, but it's about taxes not being brought against rich people, such as the new big beautiful bill. That to me is a form of like corruption.
And this bill showers the wealthiest Americans with tax cuts. Get this. A family making less than $50,000 per year, they'd get less than $1 a day in tax cuts. I mean, you can't buy a damn cup of coffee with that. But those making $1 million a year or more, well, they'll get more than $250 a day in tax breaks, or $96,000 tax breaks on average in a single year. I mean, that's even worse than the original House bill. That's how rigged this bill is to benefit the wealthy. The average millionaire gets more in tax cuts than most families earn in an entire year. And to be clear, there is deep support on the Democratic side for extending the middle-class tax cuts and passing no tax on tips. We'd be happy to work with you on something that delivers just that. But Republicans are holding bipartisan initiatives hostage to provide handouts to billionaires and gut Medicaid and SNAP. Now, meanwhile,
and I just find that unconscionable. And I'm going to leave you with this. This is Scott Galloway. Sorry, the audio's not going to be perfect. It's recorded off from a TV. But this is Nicole Wallace with Scott Galloway. And Scott Galloway freaking nails this. Nails it.
With Scott Galloway. Scott, you said so many interesting and provocative things. I don't have enough time to dive into all of them, so you're going to have to promise to come back. But I do want to read this. This is something you said about wealth in America. The bottom line is rights and democracy have become purely a function of how wealthy you are in America. The wealthiest 1% are protected by the law but not bound by it. And the bottom 99% are bound by the law but not protected by it.
What a maxim. 99% of the population are bound by the law but not protected by it. They have to do what the law says, but the law doesn't really protect them. And then for the other 1%, it's the other way around. They are protected by it, but not bound by it. They don't have to adhere to the law because they're the 1%, but it protects them.
Explain that.
I would argue, Nicole, that we could live in deepest, reddest Mississippi, and if someone in our life became pregnant, we could handle it. If somebody gets angry at me for free speech or saying negative things, I can lawyer up. If things get really bad and they start rounding up Jews as they did in the 30s. And by the way, I don't think there's that much difference between us and Germany in the 20s and 30s. If you really look at what's going on here, I have the money to peace out to Milan or Dubai. There's an emerging transnational oligarchy where you essentially have your own schools, you have your own defense, you have your own healthcare, you have your own laws. And the shameful or the disappointing thing about that is that it reduces the vested interest in the success and the protection of what is America amongst the most powerful. The reality is your rights are entirely correlated now to your wealth. And there's a bit of a silent conspiracy between the very wealthy and the Trump administration, who clutch their pearls at how terrible what is going on is, but at the same time upload their taxes to ChatGPT, as I have done, and found out they're about to become much wealthier with the Trump tax cuts. You know, the biggest shame about all of this, or one of the biggest shames about all of this, is that if the Trump administration brought the same competence and elegance to governing as they bring to grifting, we'd be in a much better place. We now have a mob family running the United States, but that's bad. But what's worse is Michael Corleone is running the grift and Fredo is running the government. This is a toxic combination of outstanding grift with incompetent governance.
Just fricking grift. Grift and incompetence. It's horrific.